The French Revolution. You've definitely heard of it. It's one of those huge, world-changing events that literally redrew the map of politics. It was this incredible story of hope and giving power to the people, but it was also a story of absolute chaos and terror. So let's dive into this amazing paradox, because it still shapes our world today. See, at its heart, the revolution started with this huge, mind-blowing promise. This wasn't just about fixing a few of Francis's problems. Nope. This was about creating a brand new foundation for society itself, based on rights that belonged to every single person on the planet.
And this is the line that lit the fuse. From the Declaration of the Rights of Man, just let that sink in for a second. Men are born and remain free and equal in rights. In a world run by kings, where your whole life was decided by who your parents were, this idea wasn't just revolutionary, it was explosive.
Which brings us to the big, chilling question at the center of it all. If the whole point was liberty and equality for everyone, how in the world did it end up here? With the guillotine, this symbol of cold mechanical death, becoming the revolution's most lasting image.
Okay, so to untangle that mystery, we've got to start with the promise itself. We need to really get what was laid out in that game-changing document, the Declaration of the Rights of Man.
What's just wild is how modern this all sounds. They were saying that rights like liberty aren't gifts from a king. They're natural. You're just born with them. They argued that the right to rule, sovereignty, doesn't come from some divine bloodline. It comes from the people. And they established that the law has to be the same for everybody, and that you should be free to say what you think. This was literally a blueprint for a whole new world. But to get just how radical that blueprint was, you have to understand the world they were trying to tear down. So let's take a look at what French society, the so-called Ancien Regime or Old World, actually looked like.
So basically, French society was split into three groups, or estates. You had the first estate, that was the clergy, the second estate, the nobility. Now, together, they were a tiny, tiny slice of the pie, like 3% of the population. The other 97%, that was the third estate, and that was literally everyone else. We're talking peasants, lawyers, merchants, you name it. And right here, this is the core injustice. The first two estates, that tiny 3%, had all the political power, but paid almost no taxes. Meanwhile, the third estate, pretty much everybody, had zero political power, but had to carry almost the entire tax burden for the whole country. It was a system that was fundamentally broken. A system like that was just begging to be challenged, and that challenge was powered by the big ideas of the Enlightenment. You had thinkers like Montesquieu, Rousseau, and Voltaire who gave people the intellectual tools, the arsenal really, to fight back. Ideas like separation of powers, that the people should rule, and, of course, freedom of speech.
So you've got this deeply unfair system and all these explosive new ideas swirling around. How does it all actually catch fire? How do you get from angry words and books to a full-blown uprising?
Well, it all happened unbelievably fast. In May 1789, the king calls a meeting to try and fix the country's finances. A month later, in June, the Third Estate just declares itself the new government. Then, on July 14th, the people of Paris storm the Bastille prison, a massive symbol of the king's power, and by August, that Declaration of Rights is published. In just a few months, the entire power structure of France had been completely turned upside down.
And this should have been the triumphant ending, right? The people won. But this is where the story takes a really, really dark turn. How did this incredible moment of freedom spiral down into paranoia, violence, and the period we now call the Reign of Terror? Well, a few key things just poured gasoline on the fire. First, the king tried to escape the country, which completely destroyed any trust people had left in him. Then France went to war with its neighbors, which created this intense atmosphere of fear of enemies outside and inside the country. Soon enough, the monarchy was gone, and with threats everywhere, the most extreme faction took control and unleashed the terror.
And this is where that paradox just smacks you in the face. The beautiful ideal of innocent until proven guilty was replaced by something called the law of suspects, which let them arrest anyone who seemed even a little disloyal. The noble pursuit of liberty was handed over to a court that didn't bother with things like due process, and the right to resist oppression got twisted into a justification for mass executions. So how could they possibly justify this? Well, you have to listen to this chilling quote from Maximilien Robespierre, the guy who was basically the architect of the terror.
He argued that to protect the virtue of the revolution, you had to use terror as a kind of justice, fast, harsh, and unbending. It's a terrifying idea that to save liberty, you first have to destroy it. Now, the terror did eventually burn itself out. It started consuming its own leaders, including Robespierre himself. But even after all that horror, the revolution's impact was permanent. It really did create a blueprint for the modern world we live in today.
So, what's the final takeaway? It's huge. The revolution cemented the idea that the people should rule, not kings. It invented the modern idea of the citizen, someone with rights and responsibilities, not just a subject who obeys. It even gave us our political language. Liberalism, conservatism, radicalism, all born from this moment. It became the ultimate case study in both the incredible promise and the incredible danger of trying to change the world. And that leaves us with this heavy, timeless question that just doesn't go away. The French Revolution tried to build a better, more perfect world, but in chasing that dream, it unleashed horrors. It forces us, even today, to ask a really difficult question. When, if ever, does the pursuit of a perfect future justify terror in the present?